Everybody, it's Chris Loud. Today I'm going to be doing a mixed media landscape painting in my sketchbook. Primarily I'm going to be using acrylic paint and newspaper. So this is based off of a painting I've done in the past. I'm going to go ahead and just get a horizon line kind of working here. This one has a little bit of a mountain in there. This is based off a little bit of a ravine that is close to an area that I walk every day. So I'm just going to put a loose sketch in here just so I have kind of an idea of where I'm headed. And like I said, this is based off of a painting I did before, but I'm really going to kind of loosely base this off of that. I'm not anticipating this is going to look the same, but that'll be my my model, I guess, at this point. So I'm going to start with a number 10 flat brush, and the colors I'm using today are yellow ochre, alizarin crimson, ultramarine blue, a little bit of burnt sienna, and titanium white. And I do have a little bit of Payne's gray set aside. I'm just going to start right now by doing kind of a little bit of a wash with just watered down yellow ochre here, just to get something down, and then I'll let that dry, and then I'm going to add some newspaper to that. And this is more like really watercolor at this point. I'm going to go ahead and take a paper towel and even kind of wipe some of that back. But just to get kind of an underpainting going here a little bit. And then I will do a little bit of titanium white to that and do the background over here, the kind of the distance. Like I said, this is an area near where I walk in the morning. And just a smidge of alizarin crimson mixed with a little bit of burnt sienna, and I'm going to add that down, kind of a little bit of darker color down at the bottom here. And I'm not being too careful with what I'm doing, just kind of getting, like I said, kind of a first layer down. I'm going to clean my brush off, and then I will work the sky a little bit here. Again, just mixing a little bit of ultramarine blue with titanium white. And I'm not going to have this real thick either. I'm going to water it down. And again, just working on a base coat here. Just kind of almost toning my canvas. This stuff will, this paint will show through in some parts in the end, but overall I'm just trying to get something down that I can work with. And again, take my paper towel and kind of wipe some of that back a little bit. Okay, and then for the mountain, I'll do a mix of alizarin crimson and ultramarine blue, and I'll add some white to that. And I want this to be a little more on the blue side. So I'm just going to start with this, and again, I'm not going to be too careful with what I'm doing, just trying to get some color down. that will end up probably being a little bit lighter than that in the end, but right now I just kind of want to get my dark down on that. And while I'm kind of using a previous painting as my inspiration for this, I am not trying to have this look like that painting. And that painting did not, that was not a mixed media painting, that was just an acrylic painting. All right. So, for the ravine itself, I want to start off with some darker colors. So I'm going to actually do a little burnt sienna and ultramarine blue, and start getting some of that down. A little bit more of the burnt sienna to that. And a little bit more water. Again, just trying to get some kind of base colors here. And then I'm going to, again, pull some of that back a little bit. I'm not too worried about covering every inch at this point of the painting. Just trying to get something going. All right, so that gives me kind of an idea of where I'm headed with this, and I'm going to get a little bit more of yellow ochre in there. So I'm going to let this dry, and then we'll come back and get painting. Okay, so that's dry now. I'm going to go ahead and start getting some newspaper down. And I'm not going to be too precious about the newspaper. The only thing I'm going to try and do is get a little bit more straight line on the horizon, or excuse me, not horizon, but the edges here. Otherwise, I'm just going to start kind of ripping the shapes that I need out of this newspaper. So I want it to be a little rough, and I'm okay if I need to add more and overlap it. Get this a little less hard-edged here. I'll start with that, and then I'll just keep adding newspaper as I need it to fill in the areas where there's grass. So I'll be doing the foreground and a little bit of the background here with the newspaper. So I'm going to just use a little matte gel medium with a palette knife, and I'm just going to start getting some of this glue down, and then get the newspaper set. And so I'm just kind of getting this all over, and we'll get this down. Like I said, I'm not being too precious about this newspaper, and if it's, well, maybe I don't want it quite so wrinkled up, but I'm expecting that I'm going to be just adding little bits and pieces where I need to, and moving on. So got that down. I'm not even too worried about the orientation of the letters of the newspaper. Just trying to get some things that will fit. Tear that off here. So far, so good. I actually saw this, not this particular thing I'm doing, but I was looking at a book I got from the library over the weekend on acrylic painting, it was by Soraya French, and it was called Dynamic Acrylics. And in this book, I noticed that a lot of the examples had newspaper in the paintings. Not, a ton, just little bits here and there. There were some that had them more than others. But it just kind of inspired me to play with newspaper a little bit more. And I'll leave a link to that book. I'm not sure you can still get it in hardcover. I looked online and didn't see that it was available, other than from some used bookstores and stuff. But I'll put a link to it so you can actually see what the book is. And then I happened to notice that she has a few other books. One of them being it was called Contemporary Landscapes in Mixed Media. So I think I'm going to order that one. I'll put a link to that too. Looked very similar to the book I was looking at. But the nice thing about that book was it's going over different techniques that you can use in mixed media with different paintings. But it had a lot of great examples, which I always, you can find a lot of examples online. But it's something different when you have it in a book or even a digital book where you can kind of zoom in a little bit and really take a look at some of the details of the painting. I know I like to go on Instagram and look at books, or excuse me, at paintings. The downside is you can't really zoom in too well and really look at those pieces. All right, I like how that's looking. And I'm just having to kind of eyeball the what I need. And that's great because I don't really, not, like I said, too concerned about having things be perfect on this. Let me know if you do landscape artwork, mixed media, or painting, drawing, anything. That's actually how I started out, was doing landscape paintings. Following along with a guy named Rod Moore, who's down in Australia, and very talented artist. I believe he's a self-taught artist. This is a very different way of doing paintings, landscape paintings, compared to what he does, but definitely check him out. I'm not sure, I don't think he has a whole lot on YouTube anymore, but I'll take a look, and if he does, I'll put a link to some of his stuff as well. Now that, I think I need to do a little cutting there, away of some of this on the horizon, just to get something a little more even. Not that it has to be super even, but I'm not sure I like the jagged edges on this at this point. So I'm just using a small X-Acto knife to get rid of some of those jagged edges. There'll still be some edges to it, I think, but not quite as rough. So yeah, so I'm good with that. All right, I'm going to add a little bit more of this gel medium just to make sure that this is sticking, and then I'm going to let that dry, and we'll come back and get some paint down. Okay, so that's fairly dry now. I'm going to go ahead and go down to a number 8 flat brush, and I'm going to start working the darks in the ravine a little bit more. So I'm adding just a tiny bit of ultramarine blue and adding that to a little bit of the Payne's gray and the burnt sienna, excuse me. Forgot what colors I'm using here. And I'm going to start working on getting the darks in this ravine. I'm trying to give it a little bit of a slant as this ravine is fairly deep. I mean, it's kind of in the city, so it's not something you're going to find in the deep mountains of really cavernous and deep ravines there, but deep enough. And just kind of go right off the edge there. And do the same thing kind of over here. So know that that kind of keeps going, but we'll probably have some grasses that will peek up. And I'm just kind of, at this point, I'm adding the darks, but I'm kind of just grabbing a little of the burnt sienna straight and just kind of putting that in as well. So go with that, and then I'm going to grab a palette knife and just kind of make some lines where I can, where it's still wet, to give that impression that this is kind of coming down at a little bit of an angle. Alright, so we're going to stop there with the ravine for a minute. I'll wipe my brush off. And I kind of go back up to the sky, and I'm going to add a little bit of the yellow ochre and titanium white. Very kind of faint yellow color here. I'm going to add it up along the horizon a little bit. Almost like there's kind of a sunset or even possibly a sunrise, depending on what direction you're facing, I guess. And I'm just going to kind of rub that in with water a little bit, just to give a hint of warmth to the sky there. And I'm going to, as I'm doing that, I'm going to kind of shape this mountain up a little bit. Didn't quite want it that high up. We'll kind of do that there. All right. A little bit of warmth there to that. Give a little bit of a peak. All right. I'll leave that alone for right now. I think that's getting the desired look that I'm going for. All right. So now I need to get a little more burnt sienna on my palette here. And I'm going to add burnt sienna and some of this yellow ochre together. A little bit of a darker color to just start adding down, and that's not quite as dark as I wanted it. A little bit of alizarin crimson in there as well. I'm just going to start getting some of that in the foreground. I'm going to add just a smidge of ultramarine blue to that, so we get a little bit little bit darker. Okay. And a little bit of that over here to show the edge of this ravine a little bit. Now this is kind of the way this looks is this it's kind of an edge that kind of comes up to the ravine right here. So kind of looking down from this kind of grassy area. And we'll start getting some yellow ochre and burnt sienna up here, and just some yellow ochre. I'm just going to start filling this in. Then I will take my paper towel and wet it a little bit, and then we will wipe some of that away. I'll take my paper towel. The painting that I did of this before, I spent several hours on. I'm obviously just working this as a warm-up and kind of experimenting with newspaper in this, so I'm not going to spend that kind of time. So I was doing several layers before with this. Okay, so that gives me something to start with there. I'll come back to that and let that start drying a little bit. And now I'm going to add some white. So we'll work the background closer to the horizon here, because that will be a lot lighter back over there. And that might be a little too light, but a little bit more yellow ochre to that. Smidge of this burnt sienna. And I'll start getting that in. And I'm just going to start kind of getting that down kind of with some thick paint. And again, I'll do a little bit of wiping away. And as it gets closer to us, I'm going to add a little bit more of the dark with a little bit more of the burnt sienna in there. And I'm not too concerned about having things mix real well. I kind of want this to have a variety of colors in there, shades and colors. So I'm just going to kind of get that and then use my finger a little bit. And I'll grab my towel, or paper towel, I guess. It's technically towel. And start kind of lightly blending, covering up some of that newspaper on the horizon. So yeah, so I think that's looking good there. I'm gonna take a little bit of that light stuff and start paint. You can tell my brain starts shutting off a little bit as I'm painting. And I'm adding a little bit of the alizarin crimson to this. A little bit of reds in there. Kind of more of a orange color now, a rust color. Not even rust really. Kind of earthy orange, I guess. And again, I'm gonna just take my paper towel and start wiping a little bit and cleaning this. And I think I will take my palette knife and just kind of do a little bit of scratches in here. Not a whole lot. Okay. I want to add a little bit more to this ravine part over here, because that does kind of come in a little bit here. So get that set up. All right. So next step that I'm going to do, other than adding a little bit more paint there, and then taking that palette knife and kind of doing some scratches in here. I want it to give a little bit of a lip for the edge here. So I'm kind of scratching away kind of near the newspaper actually, and that is working out kind of well. Okay, So now I'm going to take a fan brush. This is kind of a bristle fan brush. And I'm going to take some isopropyl alcohol. I'm going to dip it in that alcohol, bring it out, grab another paintbrush, and I'm going to just kind of tap on the foreground to see if we can't get some little droplets, almost like where you might have flowers, or depending on what time of year, maybe you've got the heads of dead sunflowers or something. And take another paper towel here, and then I will press down on that. And I've got another cat out there wanting in, so if you hear that, apparently the cats are really wanting to get in here and watch me paint. Okay. I'm going to let that dry for a minute, and then we will keep going. All right, that's not perfectly dry, but it's dry enough. So I'm going to take some titanium white and some yellow ochre. I'm going to start getting some variety of swatches of grass in here. I'm not going to be too careful about it. I just want to get something that we can work with here. All right. Make it a little lighter up there. Okay. Now with that, get some scratches in there. And I'm going to bring in a little bit of cadmium yellow to mix in here. Get a little bit of a variety. On the edge there. And I'm going to kind of use my finger, and I'll probably use this palette knife as well, just to kind of get it so it looks like we've got some kind of growth going over the edge a little bit there. Add a little more yellow ochre to my palette. And try and get the lid on. All right. Some little yellow ochre and this cadmium yellow. It just kind of brightens things up just a little bit. All right. So we'll also get a little bit of white mixed in that and get that out kind of closer to the horizon. Again, not being too careful with it, but just so we have a little bit of variation there. And again, kind of adding a little bit here as well in the foreground. All right, and I'm going to just touch that up and make sure I have a little bit of dark in the foreground as well, so especially in this area. So kind of get some mix, and maybe even along the edge of the ravine, a little bit of darker lip there. Maybe even have a little bit of it kind of hanging over there. All right, so I'm going to let that kind of sit for a minute. Obviously, this is looking a little bit more like a this images in the fall or something. Get a little bit more darks in there real quick. especially on this edge. All right, I'm going to start working the sky a little bit because I'm not going to spend too much more time on this since it's a warm-up, but it's getting kind of in an area I'm liking. And mixing some titanium white with the ultramarine blue and just a little bit of that cadmium yellow, just to kind of try and have a little bit warmer sky. And that might be too warm, or too light, excuse me. Yeah, a little bit more of the ultramarine blue, and I'm going to start at the top here. Kind of work that, and then blend with my finger down. Almost looks like might be some kind of storm clouds or something up there. Maybe a little bit darker up in here. So we've got some light above the peak. But we also have potential for some clouds or some rain, and it could also just be in the morning. And we've got the sun coming up, but we still have some clouds there, which I see quite often. All right, so is it perfect? No, but it works. I don't like those clouds there. I think I'm going to just spend a minute real quick on the mountain itself. It's not really kind of a big feature of this, so I just want to touch up on it. Just kind of getting a little bit of light in there as well, just for a little variation. And I have to paint that out there. A little bit of blue to that. That is probably too dark, but let's see what we can do. Clean up the top, and I'm spending way too much time on this mountain, so I'm gonna kind of finish that off and add a little bit of this yellow back in. Gonna clean that up a little. Well, that was a lot of white in there, but let's see how that works. It might be a little overbearing, so let's wipe some of that back. And just need to get this area right here kind of fixed. So I'm just going to get some of this blue, and we're just going to kind of work that in, try and clean that up a little bit. So I think that will work. Okay, so I think the only thing, a couple things left. Just want to get a little bit of variation, a little more variation in the foreground here. With a little bit of dark in here. I'm going to add a little bit into the middle section. And then again, just kind of wipe some of this back. But that was a little alizarin crimson, a little bit of ultramarine blue, and a spot of the burnt sienna. And I'm going to work this edge a little bit. So So it looks like there is an actual edge kind of over here. All right. And then we will go back to the fan brush, and I'm going to start mixing that, just dipping it into some of these spots of paint that I have mixed. And just kind of randomly adding some texture. I think I'm gonna kind of dab that away a little bit so it's not quite as thick. We'll get some of the cadmium yellow mixed in here as well. A little bit darker. So we've got a variety. I'm going to get some stuff on the edge so actually it looks like we're in an area that has some plant life. Maybe some stuff hanging over that ravine. And then we'll get some a little bit darker stuff. Oh, I thought it was getting a little darker. Get some of that up here. But really, I think we're kind of getting to a little bit of a stopping point here. I'm going to get some reds down here. I say that, and then I just keep going. It's sometimes kind of hard to stop on these, especially when you're having a good time, as I am. All right. So, last thing, I'm just going to add a little bit of lighter colors in the ravine, just to give a little variation, so you can maybe see a little, possibly some sun peeking through or something. So it's not just all dark. Right now we have those some lines down there where you can see like some sun's peeking through, and I'm just very lightly going to touch it with this brush, the fan brush I was using. Now I'm going to just wipe it away. Okay, so it gives me something there, and then I go back and add some dark in there. And when I say dark, it's a little bit lighter than what we had. And I'm going to take this and just keep trying to scrape away. Now that didn't seem to work real well, so if that's the case, I can always just add a little bit of white to my palette knife. And I'm also going to get some stuff along the edge here, so get a little bit and a little bit, kind of get some of that out. I want all of that showing. And I'm just taking a little bit of blue right now, actually. And then we got some red. And then I'll just start wiping away again. All right. I think on the very edges here, try and make a little bit of a lip, a dark lip. And right now I've got several colors on my brush. I've got some of the alizarin crimson actually on there. So I think we're good. I'm happy with that. Again, this is kind of a warm up. Definitely could add some more darks in the foreground, and bolster that a little bit. And again, I think we're good, and then I just keep going. I think you probably know what that's like. Anyway, I think we're good. We're good, and we're at a stopping point here. So if you have any questions, feel free to drop those in the comments. Otherwise, thanks for watching, and